Here.
Council Ward number 1 Leeper.
Here.
Ward number 2 Anderson.
Here.
Ward number 3 McNeil.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, on to the agenda. Is there any additions to this agenda? Seeing that there are none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Boots with the first, and McNeil with the second.
Boots?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Leeper?
Yes.
McNeil?
Yes. All right, so that has been approved. So now down to the unscheduled communications. Seeing that we have none scheduled. Oh,
Brian,
wait.
she was supposed to be on the agenda and it didn't get put on there. Her
Oh.
name, Colonial Life.
All right, so do you want me to move back to?
She just wants to speak for a little bit.
Oh, okay. Then come on up to the podium.
Thank you very much. My name is Renee Sherline. I'm an account executive with Colonial Life. And Colonial Life started out as a life insurance company in 1939, but in 1955, I'm afraid I don't have enough, we pioneered the voluntary supplemental market, that thing that the duck goes quacking about. Well, we started that, so we're not the new kid on the block. Colonial Life is actually quite a standing in the supplemental benefit market, and so we're very proud of that. This is a public sector, so I want to tell you where we are in that. We do partner with 41 out of our 50 state governments, and we partner with over 7,000 cities and 5,000 schools. So we certainly wouldn't have that reputation if we didn't take care of our customers and pay our claims and have the customer satisfaction rating that we do. We are a Better Business, A+ Better Business Bureau rated company, Fortune 500 company, and I think our reputation really stands for itself. So that's who we are. I want to tell why we exist. I don't have to tell you that the healthcare environment is a lot different today than it was, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, and especially not, 60 years ago when Colonial Life pioneered these things. So they must have been very forward-thinking. But these products that I represent are being used city, state, nationwide, and employees are really finding them useful and critical, actually, for addressing a medical surprise that none of us expects to happen. That's why they're called an accident. That's why they're called a medical surprise. And not all of us have 1,000 or 2,000 sitting in the bank to deal with it. So that's why we exist. Your city takes very good care of your employees. I had an opportunity to talk with Lorna, and you have a $4,000 individual deductible, but you've even self-funded it down lower, and you are to be commended for that. There are still some ways, though, that we can come in and take care of some things that the city of Tipton doesn't do. Well, number one, when there is a medical surprise, the biggest part of that, the doctor bills and the hospital bills, we're very thankful for the major medical, because that's going to pick a lot of that up. But anybody who's gone through that knows there are expenses that are not going to be picked up. Those would include co-pays, deductibles, out-of-network charges. If there's treatment involved, maybe Iowa City, maybe even the Mayo up in Rochester. So those things are where our policies really shine. Our policies can pay for lodging and meals, for the loss of income for somebody to accompany you while you go to those treatments if you're dealing with something, God forbid, cancer. And there's other things that really require travel in order to get adequate care. So I don't have to tell you, but 65% of bankruptcies happen because somebody has been faced with a medical surprise. And of that number, 80% have major medical insurance. So that really shows you the need that we have today. What do we offer? I'm going to just go through the list of products because I don't have a lot of your time today, so I can't go into them deeply. But we offer an accident policy, and whether you're, my age or 20. We know kids have accidents. Even I was in the emergency room just 2 months ago, and it's kind of a funny thing, but I ran into some hops. I have hops growing in my yard, in my eye. Anyway, I had to go to the emergency room for running into hops. Can you believe it? But I mean, the accident policy pays for things we don't expect. Now, if we have kids, we know things happen that don't expect. We've got a medical bridge policy designed specifically to go alongside your major medical. It can pick up whatever part the city doesn't pick up. And so that's an awesome policy and can be customized to fit your needs. We have a dental supplemental policy, cancer policy, critical illness, short-term disability. I can't forget that. Honestly, the government says we have to insure our cars and our homes. What about insuring the very asset that allows us to buy the homes and the cars? And that's our paycheck. And unlike, I'm going to use Aflac as an example. We love Aflac because they're doing a good job, and half of our business comes from Aflac conversions. And and I could tell you why. But Aflac can only protect 50% of your paycheck. Our disability policy can protect 60%. So, and we've got a great term policy, term life insurance, and whole life. So that's just briefly the products that we offer. And honestly, you can put those products in place, prepare to be surprised, for less than $5 a week, some of them. And this is what, when employees have access to our products, they learn the multitude of things that they can get benefits for, and they learn, oh my goodness, I can get a cancer policy for $4.13 a week. You know, you can put an accident policy in for less than $5. You could even get term insurance, not at my age, but if you're 28 years old or 30 years old, you can get $50,000 of term insurance, for less than $5 a week. So those are awesome, awesome prices. And we would love to come in and make these things available to your employees. So how do we do it? Our process is designed to, we don't want to get in your hair, we don't want to put more on your plate, we just want to do 3 things. We want to have a group meeting with your employees. So that can happen at their lunch break, at the start of the day, at the end of the day. We can tag along with a staff meeting. We are flexible, we'll work with however you guys want, the least intrusive way to say to your employees that basically what I've said to you today. So they hear we're reputable, so they hear what we offer, and we go into a little more detail on the products because that's really what they're interested in. And then we provide them with a packet, and I've given Lorna the same packet that we would give those employees, so they could take it home, discuss it with their husband, wife, significant other, whoever else makes decisions in their home, and then come back 2 days later, or 3 days, prepared to either get quotes, just sit down and ask questions, go forward and enroll in the products, or just say, it's not going to work for me. I mean, I'm not going to twist anybody's arm, but we want them to know that these are available. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the enrollment. So after we have a group meeting, then we meet one-on-one. What I like about Colonial Life is that it is very personal. We're not born understanding this stuff. So if an insurance company can come alongside people, help them know how to make a claim, know when to use it, know exactly what they got, there's a lot of the mystery is taken out of it. And let's face it, nobody loves insurance, right? But we know it sure helps when you need it. And then the third thing we ask for is a payroll line. Because we want to see you guys, this is where your benefit comes in, as the city of Tipton. Every dollar that your employees invest in these products, you now save 7.65% of payroll taxes. So there's a savings for you. And them too, because outside of life insurance and disability, the other products can be deducted on a pre-tax basis. So now they're not paying taxes on that income. So it really is a win-win situation. And I know I've probably used up my time. I don't know if I have time for questions, but I want to thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. And Lorna was probably the communication person, and she'll get back to me on how we can make this work. Any other questions before I go? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. If there's anybody else who would like to, just state your name and your address.
Okay. Who am I? I'm Mary Swanee, I live in 10 Plum Street. I have a question, and those of you on the Airport Commission can certainly answer it. I want to know if we are still having McClure's negotiate.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody that's on the commission. Aren't there 3 of you? Aren't you on there too, Ann?
Negotiate what?
McClure is still on the payroll.
negotiate with landowners on the airport?
I haven't seen any activity of that.
No, they're on the payroll.
We use them for their airport consulting, but there's been no discussion with their property owners that I'm aware of.
How much has the city spent so far with McClure's on the airport issue?
I wouldn't have any idea. That would be.
Don't know, have to get back to you.
Mhm.
Yeah, off the top of our head. But we can definitely look it up.
Could we put that on the agenda for next meeting? Because I heard fairly recently that they were negotiating again.
Not to my knowledge.
Nor mine.
All right, thank you. There's anyone else? You make your way to the podium. All right, seeing as there is none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which has the approval of city council minutes from October 3rd, approval of September treasurer's investments report, and also the approval of liquor license renewal for Pizza Hut. Now, we do not have the treasurer's and investment report in our packets, so I would recommend we table this. Is there a motion to table that?
I'll make that motion.
Boots with the first, and McNeil with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots.
Yes.
All right, so that's been tabled until next month, so that just leaves the other two, the city council minutes and the liquor license renewal. Is there any discussion on that? Being there is none, is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
Spear with the first and Anderson with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots.
Yes.
All right, moving on to the public hearing. This is a public hearing for the consideration of a budget amendment fiscal year 17 to 16. I do need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Spear with the first. And McNeil with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots.
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right. Mr. Long?
I'll actually defer to Lorna shortly, but the purpose of the public hearing is to allow for the council to consider amending the budget that had been proposed. This amendment stems entirely from the need to replace one of the engine generator sets. And so there's an $800,000 change to acknowledge that unanticipated expense. Laura, what did I miss?
That's it. We aimed a little high to be sure we included anything that might pop up. Plus, some of the taxes weren't totaled in the information that Floyd gave me, so I kind of calculated from that. So that's why we have the $800,000. And we will be using cash reserves to cover it.
Any questions for Lorna or Tim? All right. So then, is there a motion to close this hearing?
So moved.
Anderson with the first,
Second.
and Lieber with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
All right, then down to the resolutions for approval. The first one is a resolution for the city street financial report approval, which we were all given. Is there any discussion on this?
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, why do we have to, one second, why do we have to take it off? Oh yeah, sorry, it was tabled. I need a motion to take it off the table first.
So moved.
Boots with the first,
Second.
Spear with the second.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots.
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
All right, so now that's been taken off the table. Mr. Hodgson, you had a quick question?
I do. Page 7 on the financial report indicates that you had an audit. Who conducted the audit of this?
We have an audit every year, Larry. It just pulls from that audit from Clifton Guns, or Clifton Larson.
Okay, yeah,
It's
so
just
I
theirs.
didn't know, it didn't says our audit, but I wasn't sure who did it.
No, it's the annual one we have.
Okay. And they found the error, the discrepancy, are they the ones that detected that discrepancy then?
What
The,
discrepancy are you talking about?
The adjustment,
No, they
I had
didn't
it.
find it, but in order for me to do the adjustment, the DOT needs a copy of the audit, so that was attached to the report.
okay, yeah, because I see the audit wasn't included in the packet, so I didn't have access to that.
No, it's online. You can find it on the state auditor's website.
Yeah, well, I just noted that it wasn't with the council packet.
No, it was attached to the audit that was sent to the state by PDF file, so it's not included in this report.
And just one other quick question. Under construction, reconstruction, improvements, we're showing street debt. So that's money that's been borrowed in the past for street improvements that we still owe, is that correct? We still owe that amount of money on
No,
bonds or
no,
whatever?
the only thing that we would still own would be the bonds, the
Yeah.
bond area. Let me look at this real quick.
Page 4.
Yeah, it's on the summary sheet. It says bonds, street debt, and it shows bonds, notes, and loans, principals paid, interest paid. And then on page 4, it lists everything out.
Well, then going up to under E, construction, reconstruction, and improvements, street, bridge, construction, on column 3, which is titled street debt, you go down to E3, shows $3,648,000. What is that number referring to? Do you have it with you?
Well, I can't get mine to open up. My password needs to be changed. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I'm assuming it's back in the debts, bonds and notes. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head, Larry. I'd have to go back and look at the report. And I can't get mine to open up here.
Okay, this seems like, I don't understand why that mark.
That could be part of the adjustment with the explanation on the explanation page.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
The explanation page on number 3, it says adjustment made on summary page, column 3, both revenue and expenses side.
Okay.
Right, both revenue and expense side.
Mhm.
But the adjustment, was the adjustment total $3,648,000? Made adjustments of $3,485,000, $293,000, and $59,000. Total $3,132,000. If you run across there under A2, so that still doesn't correspond. Now, under engineering, street debt, you're showing $551,000 in street debt. So if you added that to your $3,130,000, so it's just a little bit confusing. I understand it's complicated, and the average person's not supposed to understand this. So I understand that, but it's when you have problems or something that's,
Without going back to my.
something that's obviously been failed to be entered correctly, it just brings up questions about other things that show up on the report. So I guess I would be interested in knowing what that is exactly. Sometime you could figure that out. Explain to me that $3,648,000, where that figure comes from, and why it's listed under street debt column. Construction, reconstruction, and improvements, because obviously we haven't.
It's correcting previous balances is what I was trying to accomplish. When I spoke to Tammy at Iowa DOT a because our beginning balances were not correct. This has been going on for a number of years, apparently, so we're trying to fix that.
Okay.
And she said to make sure that we to go back as far as I could, which I did, to make the corrections and the adjustments. So that $3,643,459 is part of that adjustment, but I can't tell you for sure what. It was several projects that we've done in the last 7 years, probably, because that's how far back I went.
Okay.
And then there should be the offsetting revenues as well.
Yeah.
And if you look at the balances, it is in balance, or she wouldn't have approved it. But the best I can tell you without having my notes is it was
Sure.
adjustments that we made to fix this report.
Yeah, I could understand if that's 7 years of construction,
Well, it's probably more than that. That's as far back as I could go.
but what's confusing is for the fiscal year 2016, which should have been 1 year. So now it's, I understand a little better than I did,
Mhm.
so appreciate your help on that. Thank you.
Alright. There's no more questions. Is there a motion to approve this street financial report? McNeil with the first, and Leeper with the second.
Leeper. McNeil. Booth.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Alright, so now the next one is the resolution to approve the budget amendment that we have the public hearing about. Is there any other discussion on that? Seeing there is none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Boots with the first,
I'll second.
Spear with the second.
McNeil. Booth.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
Alright, now moving down to L, motions for approval. The claims list for the month. Are there any items that need to be pulled out and discussed?
I do have a question on
Alright.
one for Lands End. It's all of the shirts, I believe, that are provided. Is that done annually, that we provide everyone with so many, or what?
And
That's
that's
the,
the library, it's economic development, it's the office. Source price.
And I think it said utility on there, that was.
Well, because the girls in the utility office are paid from all the utilities. Yeah.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question about a claim?
Yes.
It's a little hard for me to read it. There was a claim in there for, it appeared to be EMT training, EMS training or whatever, for $10,000. What does that cover? I mean,
Is that the new?
explain that. It seemed like a large amount of training, and it's all right if it's something you do annually or what that's for, I'd like to know.
I'd be happy to answer that for you, but be warned, I'm a long talker. We submitted a claim for a new EMT course. We have 6 new people going through our EMT course. The cost of each one of these students is approximately $2,000. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Our first claim came in, and actually, I don't know what the first claim is, to be honest, off the top of my head, but we've got 6 people going through EMT course at this time. We also have 2 paramedic students coming in as well.
And then they sign contracts with the city, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Each of these students are responsible now to fulfill commitment to our service. They owe us 3 years of service. During that 3 years, they're required to provide 60 hours of on-call shifts per month, regardless of whether they succeed in the hourly requirement of 2,160 hours total. They'll still have to commit to that 3 years of training. So the total, whatever the number is that I don't have in front of me, includes the cost of their tuition, their course materials, as well as any necessary vaccinations and equipment necessary to get them to their certification level.
Who do we contract with to get this?
We don't contract with anybody. We're always open to the best bid. The best bid in this case came from Eastern Iowa Community College, and they were the least by a landslide.
Okay,
So that's who we went with.
okay. Good enough, answers my question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Rath. Alright, is there a motion to approve this claims list?
So move.
Anderson with the first,
Second.
and Leeper with the second.
Booth.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Leeper.
Yes.
McNeil.
Next one is the garbage exemption at 55 Meridian Street, which should be included in your packet as well. Mr. Long?
This is a case where a person has a shop that they just use for storage. There's no trash accumulated. They have another billing address that we do bill for refuse, and so the city's code allows for an exemption of that second location from the service fee, and this location meets those exemption requirements.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Motion on this? Mr. Leeper with the first,
I'll second.
and Spear with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
And then to number 3, which is another garbage exemption on 120 East 5th Street. Mr. Long?
This is a case where they have a vacant unit. They also have a separate house account, and they are paying the garbage charge for that other account. So they're being billed at one address, and they're requesting an exemption for the other that is not in use.
All right, make a motion. Mr. Leeper with the first,
Second.
and Anderson with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
The fourth one, which is a 28E agreement with the school and city about the school's football field and sidewalk drainage in the park. Mr. Long?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an agreement that the city and the school began working on last spring when we first discussed the drainage issues, and really the thing that set this off was a pitched sidewalk. And rather than just repair the sidewalk, we looked at this and determined that there were other issues that needed to be addressed before we went around just pouring concrete on a problem. The school board did agree to this intergovernmental agreement in which the city and the school split the engineering cost of $8,700. And once the engineering work is completed, and we have a look at the scope of work and bring that to you, there will be a breakout as to who's part of these repairs, the drainage, the sidewalk, any related grading, whose repairs those are, and those would be then divided between the city and the school. And I'm rambling, so Steve, is there anything that you'd add to this?
You did very nice.
Thank
No,
you.
I think that's exactly how I understand this.
So, and again, the school board did approve this at their last meeting,
So then they'd be responsible for half of the engineering.
half of the engineering.
I understand the need to probably get that sidewalk repaired. And I voiced this before, I'm still a little bit skeptical of paying engineering fees on, this drainage possibility being an issue there when we're still waiting to get back the sewer and water report from the Corps. To see what kind of an impact is already in that area. As far as, paving that parking and you put more paving down and you're gonna have more runoff. And so I don't wanna make an issue that we're unclear of at this point. I don't wanna make a further issue. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and what I would offer is that the McClure study is assessing the givens of the existing sewer system. What they are not doing is determining additional drainage or additional drainage resulting from additional incremental impermeable surface. What we're asking this engineer to do is to determine, okay, so if we create a parking area 10 years down the road, what's the additional amount of stormwater flow that's going to come off of that impermeable surface, as opposed to, and how fast will it come, as opposed to the earth and gravel lot that's there now. With that number in mind, that flow number in mind, they'd be able to determine whether or not there's adequate sizing of the existing infrastructure that's there, which is what McClure is doing, is assessing our existing infrastructure. And it may not be sufficient to just simply say, okay, we're going to hit whatever that drain tile is with another 5 acre-feet of water in 2 hours. We may need to think about this in a different fashion. So what this scope of work is related to the McClure work, but it is not the same. So we're looking for more information, and we're also looking for how to design this in a fashion that, in good engineering, would not aggravate what may be an existing problem in that neighborhood already. And I don't know if there is, but in my experience, you don't want to just assume you can dump whatever is going to come as a result of your improvements into an existing system without knowing, first of all, what that new dump is, and secondly, what kind of capacity you've got. So I still think it's a valid direction at this point, but I do respect your concern.
So if we were to do the engineering now, and we are fairly clear we're not going to move forward with paving that for several years, is this still going to be relevant to us in 5 to 10 years?
Well, the peril is if you do work now, and you put concrete down, and you do grading,
For the
and
sidewalks?
5 to 10 years for sidewalk and the terrain that's tied to it, and the walkways that relate to the tennis courts and the other areas around there. If you do that now and you're off by 6 inches, you'll be really sad if you come back, and I've had to do this in other locations where you have to correct or amend or adopt for that. Gosh, we should have done it at this level instead of this level.
Mm-hmm. And I agree, we probably need to have an engineer do the sidewalks and stuff. I'm just saying, are we a little premature to be moving towards the parking?
I don't think so, because I think that, again, if you assume that there is space for a given parking area there at some point in the future, and the school and or the city decide, well, it's finally time to pave that and make it a better surface. If you haven't done your front end work to know what your elevations could be, should be, what your drainage area is going to be, and then 10 years down the road you want to pave it, unless you're going to change it dramatically from what is already there, and you've already got a street or a road that's going to confine that on one side, and you've got a football field on the other side. It's just, in my opinion, better to spend the time now to determine what a scope of work can be, and then you've also got a plan set to work to over time. I mean, it could be that in 4 years you may have some contributor who absolutely loves the football games and wishes that it was paved and would say, here's a lot of cash to do this, then you're ready to go. So I would still suggest that this be carried out. And
I can't help myself, I gotta talk. Those are really good questions, and my big concern is, I'm gonna echo what Tim was saying. One of the things that I'm concerned about with our system, which is the storm water system down there, is we need to somehow take water off those tennis courts and off that basketball area, not so much there, but especially the tennis courts, and it comes fast. We need to get that underground, because when it comes across that parking area, it takes the parking area out all the time. I don't know what size pipes those are, and I don't know what the capacity is of all that, and I don't know, I'm not an engineer, I could do some farm figures though on it, but I don't think that's what we want to work with. So if the engineers can tell us what a 2-inch rain would generate and how fast does our current system take that away, or not handle it at all, or whatever, that's kind of what we need to know. The parking area situation down there is something that we're probably, as a city, not going to address. That would be the school's piece of that. That's going to be the big expensive piece of it. And I think on that situation, in all probability, unless we put bigger pipes in, that parking lot should be graded so the water runs to the east and goes around the east side of the football field. Because all that water can't possibly go into that storm intake that we have currently. We don't know that unless we shoot grades and get it figured out up front right now. But if we know what we're working with underground, then we know how much we can take or can't take. I think probably they'll take a look at that whole infrastructure storm intake area around the football field as well.
It is in the agreement.
And it's 2 years ago, no, hold it, 4 or 5 years ago, I went to the school and said, we'll help you, we'll just rebuild that intake and you guys can do the sidewalk and we're good to go. And I'm sure glad we didn't do that. Because after talking to Tim and talking to other people and talking to the school about their future plans, the other thing with their future plans is kind of critical. They want some handicap parking spots that would be paved on the north end of the football field with a nice sidewalk that goes, we've got a ramp up there to get into the stands, but we couldn't get a wheelchair down the sidewalk. That's kind of the bigger issue as far as I'm concerned. Just after looking at the whole thing, I really, and I grew up on the farm too, you guys know that, and I would probably 10 years ago have just drawn it up, but we don't do that in town. We can't do that. Is there anything else I can shed some light on that whole situation? I will say this, the email that Tim and I got today, Jack thinks if we go forward with that tonight, they can have a survey crew here on Wednesday. It'll take 4 to 6 weeks to develop the plans. His projection would be, let's get the plans developed, decide what we want to move forward with. There's 2 or 3 different options. The construction period should take 3 to 4 weeks probably, and it would start right after the track season. Get it done between track and, of course, the summer and the football in the fall. But that'd be our window to do it. And I suspect on the front end, the sidewalk, the drainage intake, of course, and the underground drainage situation off those tennis courts that'd be the first phase of it. The rest of it, that's a whole new ballgame. And it could be down the road a couple of years, it could be down the road 10 years. Question? I hope I haven't
Thank you.
gone beyond what we need to talk about. But thank you.
All right, then is there a motion either way on number 4 here? The consideration of this agreement. Mr. McNeil has made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Leeper with the second.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
You've ever been down there at that
Yes.
tennis court when it's
Said yes.
a gully washer, you'll see what he's talking
Anderson?
about.
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
All right, then, moving on to number 5, which is an agreement with Garden Associates for the school city field sidewalk drainage and future parking project. Mr. Long?
Same discussion. This is the action by which the city would contract with Garden Associates, and this would be a city contract. So it's your responsibility. That responsibility is not divided with the school. They have given the authority to act on this to one entity so that it's manageable. But this would actually provide for Garden Associates the authority to move forward on the subject we just discussed. Any questions?
So then we would pay for it, and the school would
The
then
school would, we're responsible for payment, the school is responsible for paying us for half. So
Okay.
we get the bill, we bill them, they've agreed to pay their half.
Okay.
That'll help.
Is there a motion on this? Mr. McNeil with the first,
Second.
and Leeper with the second.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
Okay. So now to number 6, which is a proposal to prepare concept plans and a cost estimate to rehab the former Legion building. And there is also a demolition estimate in your packet.
I'll open the subject if that's all right, and we have a representative from the architect's firm here to answer questions as well. But we have the proposal that was brought to you for discussion last month here, and the architect Martin Gardner proposes a cost of $5,800 to field measure and survey the building, the existing building, develop a rehab construction program, develop 2 floor plan options in collaboration with the city, and an opinion of construction costs and formal presentation. I'll let their representative speak to that. I did also solicit a cost, an estimate to demolish the 25 by 60 foot building completely. Well, not completely, but just to 4 feet below grade to break out all the concrete and break up the floor so that there's not a drainage issue there. And this was from a responsible regional contractor, and their estimate was $14,000, including fill. So in the event that that was a direction, if the city opts to not do something with this building, ultimately it will need to be demolished. And at that point, we would ask the council to authorize staff to get quotes to that end. But that's the tear down the building part, and unless you have questions for me directly, I'd like to turn it over to the representative from Martin Gardner.
I was going to say, I see a third option, and that'd be to try and sell the building to somebody else that would be interested in rehabbing it. Basically, he pretty much covered what we were going to be doing, but we'd be developing what could potentially take place there, office space, how much square footage, what could end up left over, what that could potentially be used for. And the big thing would be getting handicap accessibility to the building, so that no matter what goes in there, it's accessible. This would be a feasibility study, so I'd be coming back. There's a meeting in there with just the representatives of the city, and then there'd be another formal presentation back to you guys when we figured out what was going to happen in the final study.
What is the timeline if we were to approve that?
As I was driving over here today, and it's 86 degrees, I'm like, today would have been a great day to be field measuring, so weather's only going to get worse, so I would want to be doing that field measuring as quickly as possible. So if this was approved, I could get over here even this week or first thing sometime next week would be ideal in my opinion, because until we know exactly what's there floor plan wise, we can't really be jumping into what its future could be allocated towards. And in the meantime, I'd be working on some of those program details, how many offices, how big are the offices, we're looking for a conference room, how many people are we going to try and seat in that conference room, what we're putting in there. Currently there's only one restroom, it's not quite handicap accessible. What could I do to that restroom to make it handicap accessible? Depending on what we're putting in there, do we need 2 restrooms, and where that other restroom could end up? Those would be the kind of things I'd be working on until I really get the full floor plan put into the system. But to answer your full question, feasibility study would take someplace probably about 6 weeks or so, 6 to 8 weeks. You could get started on it right away.
And you've had experience with buildings of this age before, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, our offices are currently in a late 1800s building. So, and I'd be bringing Bethany Jordan from my office, who I've slated to be my second person on this. And she actually worked for SHPO during her last few years of architecture school, so she's very well versed in historic preservation. Maybe more just keeping her reined in, that we need to do things a cost-effective way. It doesn't need to be historically accurate, but we still want it to tie into what's there.
Yeah. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Anderson with the first and Leaper with the second.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
Yes.
McNeil.
So I'll make coordinations with Tim on when we can get into the building, and we'll be back as quick as possible.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, then the next one is the authorization to advertise for interim budget analyst / finance director. Mr. Wall?
Thank you, Mayor. As we all know, Lorna will retire next spring, and this position that she has held low these many years is a critically important role. She manages operating budgets of around $11 million a year, and there are multiple funds that have to be managed, filed, properly accounted for to you and the state of Iowa. And as I had optimistically offered last spring, that I would like to see, I would like to find the time to take apart all the department budgets and have budget discussions. I have not had that kind of time. It just has not existed. So two things. If we were to retain a person who would be the ultimate finance director at the point at which Lorna retires, and it would be beneficial if that person had the ability to spend the time to work with Lorna and department heads and dissect that, dissect the budgets and bring those reports back to you and the city council. And this person, as Lorna does, would report to my office and would interact with all the staff. I did bring this up as a discussion point a month ago and got a generally favorable response, but here I'm looking for specific direction of the city council to move ahead with endeavoring to retain someone. There is a draft job posting that you have in your packet. We would work with the municipals, the Iowa League's advertising ability, but probably the biggest opportunity, biggest find you have in Iowa is that the Iowa workforce development entity does a pretty amazing job of aggregating qualifications of all sorts of applicants for all sorts of jobs, including this one. And they also have a readiness testing service, readiness assessment service for candidates, so you can find out if someone really does have an upper level understanding of Excel spreadsheets and accounting principles. And I've had two conversations with folks from the Iowa Workforce Development Office, one in Davenport and one in Cedar Rapids, and they were very optimistic that this kind of position would draw competent candidates, and had some really good suggestions for how they would like to help do that. So I would like to have you consider moving forward with retaining a person this fall and moving them into City Hall and working with Lorna and myself and department heads to begin the transition. Any questions?
Is there a range with this interim salary?
There is. Finance directors range from minimum to the mid-range is $53,500 to $66,900.
Since that would be an interim, would it be less than?
Less than. I would suggest bringing someone in at not at the mid-range, at the midpoint, but at something less, and then as responsibilities progressed, move them into a salary range we negotiated to get the most competent sort of person within this price range that you can get.
When you say not the mid-range, and the minimum is 53.5, so
The base
that's
is
the range you're
53.5.
talking.
And that, I think, is a valid number that came from your 2015 study.
Any other questions? Is there a motion one way or the other on this? Or suggestions or anything?
What kind of start date would you look at?
If we were to start advertising next week, I would think we would need at least 3 weeks to generate candidates. So that would have us into November, and I guess we'd be looking at sometime in December and potentially January. I think some of it's going to depend on the scope and quality of candidates that we can generate, and we'll obviously bring those discussions back to you as we proceed.
I think it's pretty imperative that we get going on this to get somebody up to speed.
I really
We
agree.
could be in a hard situation if we wait.
It's, you have, with the utilities that the city provides for its constituents, you have an extremely complex budget. And the reporting requirements, both for you and for the state of Iowa, are equally complex. And as we've seen just with the state, the street fund, that is a complicated project in and of itself, and that's just one small portion of your budget.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd make a motion to move forward.
Boots with the first.
Second.
And Anderson with the second.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots.
Yes.
All right then, moving on to number 8, which is the consideration of the mayor's appointment and council consent of the police chief. And I brought to the council Lisa Kepford to appoint to chief. Is there any discussion on that? Or any comments or anything?
Well, I was part of the committee, and after the last meeting, I thought that there was going to be the opportunity to have one other individual as to be considered to even have an interview, because the qualifications of this individual were well above average, and also this individual made a statement that he wanted to move to Tipton. They make it a point to come to Tipton for their 4th of July celebrations because they like the entities here. They come often to the restaurants here, and he and his wife. And I think that the least we could do is consider giving him the opportunity to have an interview before this appointment is made. I just think that's fair.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Does that mean we have to wait till January?
Their start date was not before January.
January
I mean,
1.
as far as the interview?
I suspect an interview can be arranged soon. I don't know that.
Well, I think we have a good appointee here. She's demonstrated that she has full competency in these areas and has a concern for Tipton, and I think she has a respect for Tipton. And I can see a seamless transition with Lisa at the helm.
All right. Ms. Spear, Mr. McNeil, do you have any comments?
I grew up with a whole family of officers, so Lisa, where's she at?
You can't see what you
My whole family's officers, and I wouldn't want your job. I'm happy with whoever you choose, I really am.
Okay. Ms. Spear, did you have anything to add?
I always feel that we need to give any good qualifying applicants an opportunity. I have no complaints at all with Lisa. I think she has done an excellent job for us in the interim, and I could certainly be of the mind to approve it.
All right, then with that being said, is there a motion one way or the other?
Yes. Motion right here.
Mr. Anderson with the first to approve,
Second.
and Boots with the second.
Spear,
Yes.
Leeper,
No.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, City Council, and congratulations, Chief Cuthbert.
Congratulations.
All right, then moving on to discussion items, which are no action. I believe a council member had brought to Mr. Long, you wanted to know about snow removal on even and odd parking and sidewalk snow removal. And so included in your packets are those items. Mr. Long?
I'll open and I'll defer then. Currently, there are certain streets in the city that are designated as snow roads. I did not have time Friday to put those together. I suspect that we know where they are. It just says that it's unlawful for a driver or vehicle to impede or block traffic. One of the things that's been done in other cities, and this is what Councilmember McNeil brought to my attention, is that some cities require even odd parking. So on even days, you can or can't park on the even numbered side of the street, and on odd days, you can or can't park on the odd side of the street, so that city plows can get down the street, can get it cleared, and it's a lot easier than having to deal with parked cars on both sides of the street, like where I live. So that's the standard, and I'll defer to Tim or.
I just think it needs to be done. It would help your job, right?
Yeah, what do you guys think?
No doubt,
This has never been done since I've been here. It's been talked about a couple of times, but it's been discouraged because they tried it a couple of times and there were a lot of problems and complaints about it. I thought the same thing, Tim, when I came. I said, yeah, that'd be really great. Let's try that. And people, the guys that were in public works, for 20 years before I got here, said, "Oh, let's not do that because that doesn't work very well." We always get into it with a lot of people.
Well, it's
Nobody can
it's
remember.
just laziness. They don't move their car from one side of the street to the other.
Yeah, do you remember what problems / complaints there were?
Well, nobody could remember. Is today an even day or not? Which side am I supposed to be on? And that was, and I say that because, in all fairness, some of these people come home after work at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. They go, okay, now which day am I on? And which side do I park on? And well, it seemed like it should be easy. Apparently it wasn't. Let me just offer something that might be a little better, a more plausible solution to the situations that we have on 2 or 3 different streets. And one of them on East 4th Street. And where there's parking on both sides, the street's not that wide to start with. And people that have 5 cars because they have 3 kids or 4 that drive have. Well, I hope she's not listening to this. But there is a woman that we all know that has had that situation. And it's really tough to keep moving your cars in and out of the driveway so we get the snow plows by and all that. But if we had snow route ordinance changed and added a couple of streets on our snow routes so they could just stay off the streets, those 2 or 3 streets during those first 24 hours, so we could clean them off so then they had plenty of room to park, that would be great. We have 2 or 3 spots in town that are concerns. I don't think, most of the people in town are pretty good about that, coming off the streets while we're trying to get the streets cleared. Most people are sensitive to that. But there are places where, there's a couple of places where they don't even have off-street parking. They'd have to move their vehicles someplace down the street or around the corner or something. I can think of a couple of places like that. Anyway, that might be a solution. And I'm up for suggestions, and as a council, if you decide to go to that, and we had to mark all our streets, even and odd, it would take about $8,000 worth of signs.
We're gonna have to mark them, it's just house numbers.
Then you
The
can't
house
control-
number is what they used to go by years ago. It was a house number. If you lived at 502, you're on an even
Not
number.
on the
If
other.
you
That would
lived
be
at
too easy.
501, you're on an odd side.
If you want to do that, I'm up for trying whatever, because it would be a lot nicer for us.
Well, I know Plum Street, Fourth Street, East,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, can you generate a list of issue
Hazard
streets?
I could easily do that.
On my app.
But if we want to do something, if we want to go forward with something like, an even and odd,
I mean, most people know their own address, don't they?
They do, but to the point, it's, you cannot enforce a rule unless the street's signed. So Steve's right, we would have to put up signs that say even odd parking on snow days or snow emergency routes.
It doesn't state.
Otherwise, we can't send a tow truck to remove somebody from the location.
Let me do, I would say this one thing. This is, years ago, we had a real problem with downtown, cleaning out downtown because cars were down there. I remember coming to town, 17 vehicles one night. We're still on the streets in downtown between 2 and 6. No parking downtown between 2 and 6. That's when we clean up the downtown. We get it cleaned off. The next night we come in and we haul the snow away. Most of you are aware of that. 17 vehicles I counted one morning at 2 o'clock. The last 3 or 4 years, thanks to a very active police department and a very diplomatic police department, I might add, because they would actually go into the taverns and say, okay, guys, you got 10 minutes. And the cars and the vehicles were moved. And very seldom do we have any vehicles downtown to plow around. And when the people come to town in the morning to go to work, guess what? They've got clean streets. They don't have these in and out snowplow things that they've got to drive in and around. So I applaud our police department for the good work they've done for us, for all of us, in that respect. If we could do something like that, other parts of town, I'd love it. My guys would love it because it just makes our work easier and it looks a lot nicer and it's more convenient.
So just add a few streets that are your hazard streets to your snow route.
To the snow route, that's what I'm thinking, Tim.
All right.
We could do, and that's just an act of, it's a kind of a simple act of council, you folks doing that. I think we could change that ordinance.
There would be signs.
Bring it to you.
There would still have to be the same sign,
Yeah, but less signs.
but not all over town, so, yeah.
What,
Sidewalks. The more streets we can add
on
to
the
that,
things.
So,
I think I did.
and or whether or not we
Certainly.
go to.
Snow removal.
Parking, talk that too.
It is sidewalk.
He's trying to.
get on up here, Alden, come on.
Come on, big guy.
Another plus side to either going uneven or adding as many streets as we can to the snow hazard is we eliminate boat trailers, vehicles that don't start or are inoperable. They have to be able to be moved if we designate that one way or another. It doesn't have to be odd or even. It can be just more streets on the snow hazard route, but it's the less things on the road, the easier it is for us to do our job that way. Absolutely.
And the nicer it looks.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. And we're not zigzagging around things, and people aren't complaining because we're leaving the gap because we can't get between a street car and a thing. So yeah, absolutely. The less things, the better.
No, I want to.
Sidewalks.
Do that.
Thank you.
Would you find out hours? How long do they have?
You
Was
would
it
ask.
72 or 24?
The 24 hours in the code.
Do
Do you know if the time people have to remove snow from sidewalks after an inch is accumulated?
From the time the snowfall ends, by ordinance, you got 24 hours.
Okay.
Another thing,
That's a 2-inch snowfall, correct?
the 2-inch thing, Lorna, that has to do with our snow routes. As soon as we get 2 inches of snow on the ground, then Public Works is in action. We do the snow route with 2 inches of snow. Otherwise, we wait till morning and come in, usually around 4 o'clock, so that we can get the streets cleared, at least the centers taken out, so that people can get to work. And then we come back and curb back after people move their cars off the streets and go to work. So, but that's the typical snow thing.
And I would say that at the end of last winter, a change that we initiated, and I didn't get any pushback from the city council, is that we don't wait for complaints. If we, city employee, see that there is a sidewalk that hasn't been cleared, we send them notice. And if folks don't respond in the time allowed, the city has the authority to send a contractor to clear that and charge that property for having left their sidewalk covered in snow. I think there was one occasion where it was one of those weird, heavy, wet snows that landed and was going to freeze that afternoon, and Public Works folks went out and moved some snow, and we still billed the person, but we got the job done. And I think that once you do that consistently, people start to believe you, that you're serious about keeping sidewalks clear. So that's 24 hours, we can work with that.
This might be a perfect time just to review the snow emergency thing. I typically, when we know we're gonna be plowing overnight, I will call in a snow emergency to KCRG. We do set those barrels. People say, well, we didn't know about it. Downtown, we didn't know about it. We have 6 big barrels that go in the intersections downtown, though. If you don't know about it, I don't know. Shouldn't we drive where? Because every intersection on Lynn, 5th, 4th, and 6th, on both sides of Lynn and Meridian, have those barrels, snow emergencies in effect. And don't be parked here. And I think that's helped get that message out as well. And that's, once again, that's a 24-hour, well, it actually goes for 2 days. We plow one night, we come back next night and clean up. So,
Okay.
just and it's always KCRG is who I call. I don't know if anybody calls anybody else, but I think that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the next one, which is water sewer bill forgiveness policy review.
Thanks, Mayor. And again, we look back a year and a half to see what sort of water and sewer charges had been forgiven, and the total between water and sewer is just over $5,000 over a year and a half. It is not an insignificant amount, and I've been in a number of places where this is addressed one of 3 different ways. The first is to simply disallow. If anybody has a leaky toilet and it runs for a week and they're not aware and they run a $300 bill up, they should have checked their toilet. The bill is still theirs. The opposite pole is that every single one of these kind of leak complaints comes to the city council, and the council is put in the role of Solomon, determining who is the more just in receiving a rebate. This third way that the city of Tipton does, and this is not, it's not unusual in small towns, is that you get one time per billing person, and you're capped at a rebate of $250 for water and $250 for sewer. So if, like the house I remember in Geneseo where the folks left and forgot to turn off their water in December, and it blew a water line and it filled the basement up and was pouring out into the street, and they generated thousands of dollars in a water bill. The council was forced into a, well, gosh, should they have checked and who's responsible, and it was a months-long argument. So I'm not in favor of the no rule at all. I tend toward the sort of hard and fast rule that if your house is consuming water and utilizing sewer services, then you owe it to the rest of our community cooperative to pay for that mistake. But that's a hard place to land, and so it appears that over time this is where Tipton's landed, and those are my observations on it. I'll leave it at that.
I think it's fair, so I think it's a good policy to have. Meets in the middle. Only one time. All right.
Is that once a lifetime, once a year?
Once a life.
Once
In your
a
life.
billing entity.
Yep.
If you were in that
Per
house for
address.
40 years, you get
Okay.
one time.
All right. So then, moving on to the reports. I have a report. John Bell, the county supervisor, had called me, and I actually forgot to say this at the last council meeting, but he had called me to almost congratulate us on having such a wonderful fire department, because he said during the flood, everything that they did was on par and helped with everything down along the Cedar River. They did a great job helping with the citizens and sandbagging and everything with that. So he just wanted to pass along how impressed he was with our fire department. And there you go.
That's nice.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Council?
I just wanted to report that Psycho did meet in October. They are still pursuing a 501c6 status to be a nonprofit, so they can do some donations and be people can get tax credit for that. When they do that, at some point, then they will be doing their bylaws, and there may be a bit of structural change on how Psycho is made up. So we're just kind of waiting to see. They're, at this point, just trying to hire an attorney and get the process started.
All right. Committees? City manager?
Just to follow up on a point regarding the police chief appointment, the council was favorable toward us developing a peer group of law enforcement executives as part of a process by which you and a group of regional chiefs, sheriffs, or chief sheriff's deputies would work collaboratively in an open session with the council and the chief to determine a set of goals and objectives for the chief that were reflective of the environment in the region and the community, and provide Chief Kepford with a valid set of goals to work toward. So we will start to put that together here in the coming weeks. And that's all I have. I've talked too much already.
All right. Department heads? Steve, Floyd.
I'm just reporting that the sidewalk project at the library is progressing nicely. Most of the main parts are done. Elvin and the guys have done a great job with that, and we're going to be tying the ends in to the existing sidewalks next, and then the little island with the handicap accessible ramp that's going to cross the street right in front of the Tyson's to the front of it. That should all, weather holding, by the end of next week, we should have that all wiped out and re-landscaped. So.
Great.
Oh, and we're doing the leaf back too.
Yes.
It's, we are out there. Finally, the leaves are coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, do you want to update on Tucker?
Yeah, I sure can. Most of you know, Tucker got into an accident lighting a stove, and he is progressing well. He had burns 33 to 40% of his body. Some were worse than others. He had some skin grafting 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah, right.
And I saw him yesterday afternoon. Let's see, what is today? Monday. Yeah, I did see him yesterday, and he's looking a lot better. He's still got a long road ahead of him. They're talking about rehab maybe in a couple weeks at St. Luke's and Cedar Rapids. So we expect him back. Hopefully, who knows, but hopefully 2 to 3 months. I'm just guessing, but even the doctors don't know for sure. Depends how he progresses. But he's young and he's healthy, and he didn't get blown up, and that's kind of packing. So anyway, it's positive. It's heading in the right direction.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Floyd?
Well, tomorrow we should be running the new engine. We were making preparations to do that today. There's just a couple of little things left that the guys have got to terminate some wire and some little things like that, and then they wanted to go through the phasing one more time to make sure it was correct. One of the things that did happen though while this whole process was going on is that our substation batteries are in the process of failing. Our maintenance schedule says that, if you remember, probably about 6 months ago, I brought to you a maintenance schedule for the engines, the power plant, everything like that. Well, it does state in there that we're going to replace batteries every 10 years. Well, we got an extra 2 out of these. The tops are cracked on them, and there's one of them that the plate has actually broken and fell into the bottom. So, in the process of doing this, today I found out that our current battery charger does not have a filter in it, which, this is all engineering stuff and it's beyond me, but they were talking about a concern about the ripple effect of the AC power wave over the DC stuff, and I'm like, by that time my eyes are clouded over and I'm just like, okay. So his concern was, the engineer, was that we could damage some of the DC equipment. So he recommended that we buy another battery charger. The one quote I got from Al Torfer for just the batteries alone and the installation was almost $16,000. I've got another quote for $12,000, and that's for a new battery charger. Actually, it's a little more than that, $12,800. But I'm working on the proposals right now anyway. With that being said, we're probably going to have to replace them by the end of the year. So, Tanya was on vacation this last week, and then she's been working hard in the power plant, getting it cleaned up, getting stuff pitched out of the basement, upstairs. We're trying to get that upstairs cleaned up and make it a little bit more presentable. So we're hoping by 10 o'clock tomorrow we'll be able to start that new engine. So,
sounds good.
Other than that, that's it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and so next up though is a closed session. So I need a motion to go into closed session. Mr. McNeil with the first.
Second.
And Spear with the second.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil, Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
All right. And just a reminder, there will be no decisions made during this. All right. Then for adjournment, is there a motion to adjourn? Boots with the first and Lieber with the second.
Lieber,
Yes.
McNeil,
Yes.
Boots,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this meeting has been adjourned.
I don't.
No, he gave me his. He doesn't want it.
I don't want.
Yeah, what was that all?
I have.
Boy, that went over
I got Medicare and I got.
Oh, did we turn it back on or? No, we turned it.
And then pay for my.
I was to remain seated.
That's okay.